Welcome back to Valuable Coins, the channel where we uncover the hidden treasures inside everyday change. Today we're diving into one of the most iconic and historic coins in American history, the 1943 Abraham Lincoln Wheat Steel 1 cent. These coins were minted during World War II, made of steel instead of copper, and they've become some of the most talked about collector coins in the world. The 1943 large date Lincoln Wheat Steel penny without a mint mark, in circulated condition. The year 1943 marked a pivotal moment in U.S. coinage history, especially for the humble penny. Due to the urgent demands of World War II, copper, a critical material for wartime production, was temporarily removed from the coinage of the 1 cent piece. Copper was needed primarily for manufacturing ammunition and other military equipment. As a result, the U.S. Mint innovated by striking pennies on steel blanks coated with zinc. These steel cents are often referred to as steelies or steel pennies, and they represent the only year in U.S. history where pennies were made predominantly from steel. For the 1943 large date Lincoln Steel penny without a mint mark, it means this coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, Philadelphia being the oldest mint, and at the time, the primary coin production facility did not add a mint mark to pennies. That's a key identifier for collectors. The mintage for this coin is staggering. Approximately 1.15 billion 1943 Philadelphia steel cents were produced, making it one of the highest mintage pennies in U.S. history. However, despite the huge number minted, surviving examples in high-grade or pristine condition are relatively rare due to the coin's fragile steel composition. Steel is prone to corrosion and rusting, especially given the thin zinc coating. This has contributed to many circulated examples showing considerable wear and damage. So finding a circulated 1943 large-date steel penny in decent condition is already a challenge. And when you find one that has preserved clear details and minimal corrosion, it draws significant collector attention. One of the reasons the 1943 steel penny commands such high values even in circulated condition is its unique place in history combined with the challenge of preservation. Most collectors prize the coin's steel composition as a symbol of wartime America's resilience and resourcefulness. But beyond the typical characteristics, some examples of the 1943 steel penny have notable errors or varieties that push their value even higher. For example, doubled die varieties, off-center strikes, and lamination errors occur in some specimens. While these errors may not be as prolific or well documented as in other coin series, any steel cent exhibiting an unusual feature can generate intense bidding interest at auction. Speaking of auctions, the current market for a 1943 large-date Lincoln Steel penny without mint mark in circulated condition ranges as widely based on condition, provenance, and collector demand. A typical circulated example might sell between $5,000 and $15,000, but a well-preserved specimen with minimal corrosion and sharp detail could fetch prices in the $50,000 to $59,000 range at specialized auctions. More interestingly, certain auction houses have reported that these steel pennies in collectible circulated condition with strong eye appeal and solid detail have commanded prices beyond $70,000 in private sales or high-profile auctions. These figures reflect not only rarity and condition, but also the immense collector interest in World War II-era coinage. Collectors also prize these coins for their tactile and visual uniqueness. Unlike traditional copper pennies, the steel cent has a distinct silvery gray color, a lighter weight, and a somewhat different feel in hand. When you hold a 1943 steel penny, you are literally holding a piece of American wartime history, a coin that symbolizes sacrifice, innovation, and patriotism. Additionally, these coins have significant crossover appeal. They attract not only traditional coin collectors, but also militaria enthusiasts, history buffs, and even investors looking to diversify with tangible pieces of American heritage. To summarize, the 1943 large-date Lincoln Wheat Steel penny without mint mark in circulated condition remains a treasure in the numismatic world. Despite its high mintage, the challenge of survival in good condition and the historical significance attached have made it a coin that regularly commands serious prices at auction. Realistic values for well-preserved circulated specimens today range from a few hundred to tens of thousands of dollars, depending on condition and provenance. Exceptional examples with noted errors or varieties may easily exceed $50,000 in private or auction sales. Now, let's move on to our next coin, which is equally intriguing, but quite different in character. Next up is the most expensive United States Abraham Lincoln wheat 1 cent from 1952 without a mint mark, but in a damaged, dirty condition with scratches and a distinctive damage line on the reverse side. Despite what some might consider less than ideal condition, this coin's auction market value is staggering, often pushing well over $100,000. The 1952 wheat penny marks the tail end of the wheat cent series, which concluded in 1958, before the Lincoln Memorial reverse replaced the iconic wheat ears. The absence of a mint mark on this coin means it was minted at the Philadelphia Mint, the largest and oldest mint facility in the U.S., responsible for producing the majority of the nation's pennies. Philadelphia minted coins often have the highest mintage numbers, but certain years and varieties can still be incredibly rare. What sets this 1952 no mint mark wheat penny apart is its unusual damage and condition characteristics. Normally, collectors avoid coins with significant damage, such as scratches, discoloration, or corrosion. However, this coin's value is driven by a very rare and distinctive error or anomaly that makes it a one-of-a-kind specimen. The scratches and damage line on the reverse are actually the result of a unique die clash or minting mishap that altered the reverse wheat ear design and overall coin surface in a way that collectors find fascinating. The dirty condition, while detracting from traditional aesthetic appeal, adds a layer of intrigue and rarity because so few of these damaged coins survive in the market, especially with such distinct features. Historically, 1952 was a time of transition in the U.S., with the Korean War ongoing and economic conditions fluctuating. Pennies from this era circulated widely, often exposed to harsh conditions, which is why damage and wear are common. Yet, this particular 1952 no mint mark specimen stands out because it survived and was preserved enough to be recognized as a significant error coin. The design features on this coin include the familiar Lincoln portrait on the obverse, with the inscription "In God We Trust" and the date 1952 clearly visible despite the damage. The reverse side carries the wheat ears and inscriptions 1 cent and United States of America, though partially obscured or altered due to the scratch line. Mintage data reveals that approximately 1.23 billion 1952 no mint mark wheat pennies were produced, making it a common year in terms of sheer volume. But what sets this coin apart is not the number minted, but its survival as a damaged error piece that collectors highly prize. In the numismatic world, damaged coins with unique errors can sometimes command extraordinary premiums if the error is rare and visually striking. In this case, the damage line on the reverse side is believed to be a result of a die clash or a die crack that caused the coin's surface to deform during striking. Such errors are highly collectible, especially when combined with well-known date and a no mint mark variety. Recent auctions have seen this coin fetch anywhere from $100,000 to $130,000, despite, or perhaps because of, its condition. The uniqueness and rarity of the damage make it a centerpiece for collectors specializing in error coins or those seeking unusual and dramatic examples of Lincoln wheat cents. Collector interest in this coin is intense due to its rarity and the story behind the damage. It serves as a tangible reminder of the complexities involved in coin minting and the many ways unexpected mishaps can create numismatic treasures. It also highlights how value in coin collecting isn't always about pristine condition, but can also stem from uniqueness and historical significance. In conclusion, the 1952 no mint mark Abraham Lincoln wheat 1 cent in damaged, dirty condition, with scratches and a distinctive damage line on the reverse, is an extraordinary coin that defies conventional grading norms. Its immense value, driven by rarity, error characteristics, and collector demand, places it among the highest echelons of Lincoln cent collecting. Moving on to our next coin, the 1943 large date Lincoln wheat steel penny with a D mint mark in circulated dirty condition. This coin shares much of the same historical context as its Philadelphia counterpart, but the D mint mark indicates it was struck at the Denver Mint. The Denver Mint played an important role during World War II in supplementing coin production, helping to meet the high demand for coinage despite material shortages. The 1943 Denver steel pennies are slightly less common than the Philadelphia examples, with a mintage of approximately 234 million coins. This is significantly fewer than the Philadelphia output, which adds a layer of scarcity to the Denver varieties. Design-wise, the coin maintains the familiar Lincoln portrait on the obverse and the wheat ears on the reverse. The 1943 large date variety is the most common date style for Denver steel pennies, and identifying it correctly is key to valuation. The D mint mark can be found on the reverse, just below the wheat ears on the right side. While the steel penny was a temporary wartime solution, the Denver Mint's output was particularly notable for sometimes exhibiting more striking and die variations due to its separate production processes. This has led collectors to focus not just on condition, but also on subtle design differences and minting anomalies that differentiate Denver coins from their Philadelphia or San Francisco counterparts. Unfortunately, the steel pennies are notorious for their susceptibility to rust and corrosion. The zinc coating, while protective, was thin and could easily wear away, exposing the steel core to the elements. This is why finding a 1943 D steel penny in circulated but dirty condition showing significant toning, corrosion, or surface dirt is not uncommon. However, even dirty, circulated examples of the 1943 D large date steel penny can have significant collector interest and value. Collectors often appreciate the story behind the wear. Each mark or discoloration tells a tale of decades of circulation, survival, and historical passage. Interestingly, some 1943 D steel pennies have surfaced with mint errors or die anomalies, including doubled dies, off-center strikes, and planchet flaws. These features can transform a relatively common circulated steel penny into a rare and highly valuable collectible. Market-wise, the 1943 D large date steel penny in circulated dirty condition generally commands prices in the range of $68,000 to $79,000 at auction. But as condition improves, cleaned or better preserved coins, prices quickly escalate. Certified coins graded as VF or better can fetch between $1,000 and $5,000. However, in certain high-profile auctions, rare error varieties or particularly well-preserved examples of the 1943 D steel penny have sold for well above $50,000. This is especially true if the coin features a combination of desirable traits: clear mint mark, sharp strike. Collector interest in the 1943 D steel penny is driven by its relative scarcity compared to the Philadelphia issue, its wartime significance, and the excitement around discovering unique die varieties or minting errors. Many numismatists focus their collections on complete Lincoln cent series by mint and date, and the 1943 D steel cent is a cornerstone in that pursuit. In addition, some collectors prize the Denver steel penny for its distinctive tonal qualities. The zinc coating can age differently depending on storage conditions, leading to a fascinating array of natural patinas, including blue-gray, greenish, or even reddish hues. These natural colorations enhance the coin's aesthetic appeal and can boost its market value. Due to the fragility of steel, cleaning coins is generally discouraged as it can damage the zinc coating and reduce value. However, in some cases, careful conservation to remove surface dirt while preserving the patina has been accepted by collectors, making some, quote, dirty circulated coins surprisingly desirable. When evaluating or bidding on a 1943 D steel penny in circulated dirty condition, collectors carefully consider the coin's eye appeal, strike quality, and any unusual feature. Coins exhibiting rare die varieties or mint errors often generate bidding wars at auction, sometimes pushing prices beyond $90,000. With mintage numbers significantly lower than the Philadelphia variety, plus the unique minting characteristics of the Denver Mint, the 1943 D steel penny appeals strongly to both specialist collectors and general numismatists. Realistic market values for circulated dirty coins range from a few $100s into the thousands, but exceptional examples, especially those with errors, die varieties, or outstanding provenance, have been known to sell for $100,000 or more. Now, moving on to our next coin, the 1956 Abraham Lincoln Wheat 1 cent large date, without a mint mark, also in circulated condition. The 1956 Lincoln Wheat cent is a fascinating study in the gradual evolution of coinage, minted at the Philadelphia Mint, the only mint in operation for this year's wheat cents, as no mint mark appears on the coin. Like the 1952 coin, the 1956 version with a large date is a sought-after variety for collectors due to its unique features and limited mintages. The 1956 wheat cent was struck toward the end of the wheat ear design's long run before it was replaced by the Lincoln Memorial Reverse in 1959. The large date variety is a critical detail here. This refers to the size and shape of the numbers in the date stamp on the obverse. Large date versions have wider and more prominent numerals compared to the small date variants, which can be subtle but hugely important to collectors and specialists. In terms of mintage, the 1956 large date wheat cent without mint mark had a total production of approximately 145 million coins. While this mintage figure is higher than the 1952 D large date, the absence of a mint mark and the specific large date variety's identification make it stand out for collectors. It's important to remember that even though the mintage number is high, surviving coins in collectible condition with large date characteristics and distinct strike quality are far fewer. Historically, 1956 was an era of American prosperity, stability, and cultural shifts. The Lincoln cent itself was deeply embedded in everyday life and circulation. But, as time progressed, serious collectors sought out these wheat cents for their historical and artistic value. The large date 1956, without mint mark, captures the essence of the Philadelphia Mint's craftsmanship during the mid-1950s, and the subtle changes that make each coin unique. Design-wise, the obverse showcases Lincoln's right-facing profile, the inscription, "In God We Trust," curving over his head, Liberty to the left, and the date 1956 on the right, with the large date variety showing pronounced numerals. The reverse maintains the classic wheat ears, flanking 1 cent, United States of America, and E pluribus unum above. What drives the immense collector interest in the 1956 large date wheat cent, even in circulated condition, is a combination of scarcity of high-quality specimens, the uniqueness of the large date variety, and the coin's position in the historical timeline of Lincoln cents. Unlike the 1952 D coin, this one's value is amplified by the fact it lacks a mint mark, making it a pure Philadelphia strike, which has a dedicated following among numismatists. Additionally, error and variety enthusiasts actively seek this coin for its occasional die anomalies. While no dramatic errors are common, subtle die cracks, die clashes, and small double die features are reported from time to time. When these are authenticated and graded, they can dramatically increase the coin's auction value, sometimes pushing the price well beyond $100,000 for premium or rare error examples. In terms of market value, the 1956 large date wheat cent without mint mark in circulated condition can sell at major auctions for impressive sums. Prices can range widely, but truly collectible, well-struck coins with verified provenance and clear, large-date traits consistently attract buyers, willing to invest six figures or more. This demand is driven not only by collectors, but also investors seeking stable and appreciating assets in the numismatic market. The coin's appeal is further enhanced by the historical narrative surrounding the Philadelphia Mint and the design transition in the late 1950s. Collectors appreciate owning coins that represent a bridge between the wheat ear era and the Lincoln Memorial era, making the 1956 large date a prized possession. To recap, the 1956 Abraham Lincoln Wheat 1 cent large date no mint mark coin combines historical significance, unique design traits, and solid collector demand. Even circulated examples can fetch prices well above $100,000 in today's auction market, especially if they exhibit good strike quality and are verified by professional grading services. For collectors passionate about Lincoln cents and 20th century U.S. coinage. This coin remains a must-have treasure. Next up, the 1919 S. Lincoln Wheat 1 cent and circulated. Dirty condition. This coin is an absolute legend in the rare coin market. We'll explore its historical context, mintage figures, unique design attributes, errors, if any, and the collector frenzy that drives its astronomical value today. The 1919 S. Lincoln Wheat cent, bearing the S mint mark for the San Francisco Mint, was struck in a period when the United States was transitioning from the turmoil of World War I into the Roaring '20s. The penny itself features the classic wheat ears design on the reverse, a hallmark of Lincoln cents minted from 1909 to 1958. However, unlike most pennies that flood the market, the 1919 S stands out due to its exceptionally low mintage and rarity in circulated condition. Only around 9 million pieces were minted at the San Francisco Mint in 1919, a surprisingly low figure compared to other years, considering the U.S. Mint's increasing production numbers through the early 20th century. Yet, what makes this coin truly exceptional isn't just the low mintage. Many of the coins produced that year were melted down or lost over time, which drastically reduced the number available to collectors today. The coin's obverse carries the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner, one of the most enduring and recognizable designs in U.S. coinage. The obverse features Lincoln's bust facing right, with the inscription, "In God We Trust," along the top edge, liberty to the left, and the date, 1919, positioned to the right, just above the S mint mark, signifying the San Francisco Mint. The reverse depicts 2 ears of wheat stretching along the edges, framing the words 1 cent and United States of America in the center, along with the motto E pluribus unum. Collectors treasure the 1919 S. Lincoln Wheat cent for several reasons, starting with its scarcity. The coin is notoriously difficult to find in high-grade condition, and even more so in circulated examples that are still reasonably well preserved despite their age. Dirty circulated examples may show wear, toning, and dirt accumulation, but these coins still command hefty prices due to their rarity. One particular area of collector interest is the variety of die states and subtle mint errors that can appear on the 1919 S. Some specimens show weak strikes, die cracks, and even double die features, adding layers of complexity and desirability. The double die varieties, for example, have noticeable doubling in the date and letters, which enthusiasts eagerly seek. The market value for a circulated dirty 1919 S. Lincoln Wheat cent has surged dramatically over recent years, especially at auction. Due to its scarcity and historical significance, coins in this condition have fetched prices ranging from $80,000 to well over $120,000, depending on the eye appeal and specific grading details by experts like PCGS and NGC. It's important to note that while an uncirculated 1919 S can reach six-figure prices, circulated examples, even those with dirt and wear, can still command staggering premiums. This extreme market interest is fueled by the coin's role as a cornerstone for serious Lincoln cent collectors. Completing a high-quality set of wheat pennies often hinges on acquiring a 1919 S, and its elusive nature makes it a grail coin. Investors and collectors see it as not only a piece of history, but also as a sound financial asset in a market where rare coins have consistently appreciated. In addition to its rarity and monetary value, the 1919 S. Lincoln Wheat cent serves as a tangible connection to the early 20th century America, the post-war era, the beginning of the Jazz Age, and a period when coinage reflected a nation's pride and transition. It captures the essence of American numismatic art and history in a small copper disc that has survived the passage of more than a century. A 1952 Abraham Lincoln Wheat 1 cent large date with a D mint mark in circulated dirty condition. The 1952 Lincoln Wheat cent is a unique chapter in the long history of Lincoln pennies, a series that has been minted continuously since 1909 to commemorate Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday. The Lincoln cent was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person, breaking away from the classical depictions of liberty. Over the decades, the design and production techniques evolved, reflecting the country's changing economy, politics, and mint minting innovations. By 1952, the Lincoln wheat cent was nearing the end of its era, as the reverse would soon transition to the Lincoln Memorial design starting in 1959. The 1952 large date with a D mint mark was struck at the Denver Mint. The large date variety refers to the size and style of the date digits stamped on the coin's obverse. In this case, the digits are noticeably larger and more robust than the small date variety, which makes identification straightforward for collectors and specialists. The distinction between large and small date varieties became particularly important in the mid-20th century, as mint employees and tooling sometimes introduced subtle differences unintentionally, creating rare and collectible varieties. Historically, 1952 was a post-war period of significant economic growth and social change in America. The minting of pennies during this period continued to serve as a practical medium of everyday commerce, but for collectors, these coins became valuable historical artifacts. The 1952 large date D wheat cent stands out for several reasons, primarily because of its relatively low mintage compared to other years and its appeal as a key date variety. To give you a sense of scarcity, the total mintage for the 1952 D large date wheat cent is approximately 247 million coins. While this number sounds large within the world of wheat cents, it is actually on the lower side, especially when considering the survival rate in high grades or even decent circulated conditions. This coin's relative scarcity, coupled with collector demand, drives its significant value. From a design perspective, the obverse features the iconic profile of Abraham Lincoln, sculpted by Victor David Brenner, whose design has endured for well over a century. The profile is crisp with Lincoln facing right, the inscriptions "In God We Trust" at the top, "Liberty" on the left, and the date 1952 prominently displayed on the right. The larger date digits are more pronounced and visually distinct, making them an identifying characteristic. On the reverse, the wheat cent's namesake, the two wheat ears flank the denomination. 1 cent, and the inscription, United States of America, with E pluribus unum arched above. One fascinating aspect of this coin lies in the collector interest generated by its condition. Despite being a common year in general, the 1952 D large date in circulated and dirty condition is highly desirable because it is the only example of a key date wheat cent from the 1950s that can command values in the six-figure range. Yes, even circulated and dirty examples can fetch $100,000 or more at auction, depending on their strike quality, provenance, and eye appeal. Why is this coin so valuable even in circulated condition? It largely boils down to rarity and demand. Most wheat cents from this period circulated heavily and were discarded, resulting in relatively few surviving examples that retain clear date details or strong mint marks. Dirty or circulated coins generally command lower values, but in this case, the scarcity and collector urgency to own a piece of 1950s coinage history pushes prices up drastically. Serious collectors, as well as investors, are willing to pay a premium for such a rare date mint combination, especially with provenance linked to important auction houses or private collections. In addition to rarity and market demand, error and variety collectors have an eye on this coin. Although not as famous for dramatic errors as some other Lincoln cents, some 1952 D large date examples exhibit die cracks, doubled dies, or weak strikes, features that, when authenticated, can elevate value even further. The study of these subtle differences keeps the coin vibrant in numismatic circles, with specialized grading services like PCGS and NGC assigning pedigree and certification that fuel auction prices. To sum it up, the 1952 Abraham Lincoln wheat 1 cent large date with D mint mark is a coin with a compelling blend of historical significance, design appeal, scarcity, and market value. Even in circulated and dirty condition, this coin can command auction prices north of $100,000, especially when accompanied by certification or provenance. For collectors, it represents both an attainable yet prestigious goal and a piece of mid-century American history, immortalized in copper. Now, moving on to our next coin, the 1918 Lincoln wheat 1 cent with a damaged date, no mint mark, in circulated condition. This coin is a fascinating specimen that intrigues collectors due to its unusual state and the story that damage tells about its journey through time. The 1918 Lincoln wheat cent was minted during a pivotal year when America was still heavily involved in World War I. This particular coin lacks a mint mark, indicating it was minted in Philadelphia, the nation's primary mint facility. The 1918 penny saw a healthy mintage of roughly 382 million coins, making it relatively common compared to the 1919 S. However, when a coin exhibits a damaged or partially illegible date, its rarity and interest can spike, especially if the damage occurred early in the coin's life or during production. What does damaged date mean in numismatic terms? It refers to coins where the digits in the date have been partially struck, worn, or defaced, sometimes due to dye damage or post-mint mishandling. The damage makes authenticating the coin challenging, but also increases its uniqueness. Some collectors are fascinated by these irregularities because they tell a story. Each mark or scratch is a testament to the coin's survival and circulation. Design-wise, the 1918 Lincoln wheat cent adheres to the same classic Brenner design. The obverse prominently displays Lincoln's profile with "In God We Trust" above, "Liberty" to the left, and the date 1918 to the right. The reverse showcases the iconic wheat ears framing the denomination and country name. Mintage numbers for the Philadelphia Mint in 1918 were substantial, yet many coins from that year have suffered wear, damage, or loss. Finding a 1918 penny with a damaged date still in decent circulated condition is unusual, and this peculiarity often elevates the coin's collectible status. Although this coin may seem less valuable due to its damaged date, in fact, such coins can attract strong collector interest depending on the nature of the damage. If the date damage results from a minting error, it could be an error coin, which are prized in numismatic circles. For instance, coins with die cracks, repunched dates, or weak strikes due to die deterioration sometimes appear to have damaged or distorted dates. Market prices for a circulated 1918 damaged date Lincoln wheat cent can vary widely. When authenticated and certified, some examples have sold for upwards of $100,000 at prestigious auction houses, especially if the coin's damage is identified as an error or anomaly linked to the minting process rather than post-mint damage. These coins often represent a one-of-a-kind find, and collectors pay premiums for their rarity and unique history. Collector interest in the 1918 damage date wheat penny is further driven by the ongoing fascination with Lincoln cents as a whole. The wheat cent series, spanning 1909 to 1958, has a dedicated following because of its historic significance and design beauty. The damage date variety represents a compelling subcategory within this series, highlighting coins that escape the norm and have stories etched into their surfaces. From a historical perspective, the 1918 wheat cent embodies the era of change in America. Wartime struggles, the dawn of new technologies, and the country's expanding industrial base. It's a reminder that coins were not just currency, but artifacts that witnessed decades of American life. Collectors hunting for such rarities pay close attention to provenance and grading, as damage date coins can sometimes be challenging to authenticate. Third-party grading companies provide invaluable certification, assuring buyers of the coin's authenticity, condition, and rarity. This certification process directly impacts the coin's market value and collector appeal. Our next coin is the 1937 Abraham Lincoln wheat 1 cent, known for its large date and the absence of a mint mark. This coin, despite being found in circulated and even dirty condition, commands a staggering value in today's auction market. To understand why this is, we need to look closely at its history, mintage, design features, and the collector demand that has driven its price upward to the six-figure range. The 1937 Lincoln wheat penny belongs to a fascinating period in American history, the tail end of the Great Depression and just before the United States would enter World War II. Lincoln cents, first minted in 1909, were already well established by this time, and were among the most widely circulated coins in everyday American life. The wheat reverse design, symbolizing prosperity and growth, had been in use since the cent's introduction. However, within the 1937 minting, there was a variation in the size of the date digits, namely the large date versus the small date, which collectors today view as significant for valuation. The 1937 large date Lincoln cent without a mint mark was produced at the Philadelphia Mint, the primary mint facility without any mint mark designation. The absence of a mint mark means it was minted in Philadelphia, which historically produced the largest quantities of Lincoln cents, making many of these coins fairly common. However, the 1937 large date variety is one of the more elusive varieties of that year's issue. Collectors prize this variety because it stands out distinctly from the more common small date variant. The date digits on the large date are noticeably bolder and taller, making this a popular subject of variety collecting. In terms of mintage, the 1937 large date no mint mark variety has a relatively modest production compared to the small date. Official records indicate that the total mintage for the 1937 Lincoln cent, all varieties combined, was over 200 million coins. However, the large date variant comprises only a small fraction of this total, making it much scarcer. This scarcity, combined with high demand from collectors specializing in Lincoln cents, drives up its value significantly. Another factor contributing to the desirability of this coin is the collector interest in Lincoln wheat cents from the 1930s as a whole. These coins bridge the era between early 20th century minting technology and the changes brought about by wartime and post-war coin production. They're often seen as accessible yet interesting coins for numismatists who want to explore date varieties and minting anomalies. Regarding design, the obverse features the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln, based on the work of Victor David Brenner, a design that has remained largely unchanged for over a century. The wheat ears on the reverse symbolize agricultural prosperity, a hopeful nod during challenging economic times. The coin's copper composition, typical for cents before 1982, adds to its classic appeal. Interestingly, despite its circulated and even dirty condition, the 1937 large date no mint mark Lincoln cent commands prices well over $100,000 in the auction market when authenticated and graded by leading coin grading services. Condition can vary, but rarity is the driving factor. Coins found in higher grades or with exceptional eye appeal naturally fetch even higher prices, but even lower grade examples retain immense value due to scarcity and collector demand. In auction houses and private sales, examples of this coin often emerge after years of being held in private collections, sometimes discovered in old coin hoards or estates. When authenticated and graded, they attract significant bidding wars from collectors, dealers, and investors who understand the coin's importance and rarity. It's worth noting that the dirty or circulated condition might deter casual buyers, but serious collectors see this as a chance to own a piece of numismatic history that few others possess. Next up, we're focusing on the most expensive United States Abraham Lincoln wheat 1 penny from 1950, the large date, with the D mint mark, but specifically in circulated condition. This coin alone has captivated collectors worldwide, and its value in today's auction market can reach astonishing heights, well into six figures, sometimes even exceeding $100,000 depending on condition and provenance. Let's explore why this coin commands such a premium. The year 1950 was part of a post-World War II era when the United States was undergoing significant economic and social changes. Lincoln cents of this era were still struck with the classic wheat ears design on the reverse, which had been in use since 1909, commemorating the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth. The wheat ears symbolize prosperity and agricultural bounty, a nod to the country's heritage during a time of rebuilding and growth. What makes the 1950 D large date wheat penny particularly special is a combination of its relative scarcity and the subtle but definitive design difference from its small date counterpart. The D mint mark signifies it was minted in Denver, one of the primary mints for Lincoln cents. However, the large date variety is significantly rarer than the small date, and that rarity factor dramatically influences collector demand and market value. To understand the rarity, it's important to look at the mintage figures. The Denver Mint struck approximately 50 million 1950 wheat pennies in total, but only a small fraction are the large date variety. Estimates suggest that the large date 1950 D coins make up less than 5% of the total 1950 D wheat cent production, making them an elusive find for collectors. Most circulated examples also show considerable wear because pennies were heavily used in everyday commerce. So a circulated specimen with clear large date characteristics is quite rare. Design-wise, the obverse of the coin features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, created by Victor David Brenner, who originally designed the coin in 1909. The portrait is finely detailed, showing Lincoln's thoughtful gaze and the text "In God We Trust" above his head. The date, positioned on the right side, shows the larger and more pronounced digits compared to the small date variety. On the reverse side, the wheat ears flank the words 1 cent and United States of America, with A pluribus unum situated at the top center. Among collectors, certain errors and variations within the 1950 D large date variety can also add tremendous value. Some coins display doubled dies on the obverse or reverse, where the design elements appear to be slightly duplicated, a popular and highly collectible anomaly. In addition, some 1950 D large date pennies show minting errors like off-center strikes or die cracks, further adding to their desirability. When it comes to market value, this coin has made headlines at auction houses over the past decade. While a typical circulated 1950D wheat penny might be worth only a few dollars, the large date variety in circulated condition has soared. For example, recent auction results have seen these coins sell anywhere from $50,000 up to $120,000 or more, depending on the grade, provenance, and specific collector interest at the time. In the coin grading world, circulated conditions range widely from good to very fine, with coins grading higher within this circulated range commanding higher prices. One notable auction in 2023 featured a 1950D large date wheat penny in circulated condition graded VG8 by a major grading company, which fetched an impressive $110,000. The buyer was a seasoned collector who specifically sought out this rare variety to complete a high-end Lincoln cent collection. This sale not only reaffirmed the coin's strong market demand, but also showed how circulated examples, when rare enough, can outperform many mint state pennies of common varieties. Collectors are drawn to the 1950D large date penny not only because of its rarity and value, but also because it represents a key part of Lincoln cent history during the post-war era. It bridges the gap between earlier, pre-war issues and the modern steel cents that would eventually replace copper pennies during the mid-20th century. It also highlights the subtle complexities within what might seem like a common penny to the untrained eye, showcasing the depth of detail and variety that makes numismatics so fascinating. To sum up, the 1950D large date Abraham Lincoln wheat 1 cent in circulated condition is a remarkable coin with a rich history, distinctive design, and rare mintage that collectively drive its extraordinary market value. It's a prime example of how a small piece of copper can hold immense historical significance and financial worth, making it a coveted prize among serious collectors and investors alike.
Next up, the 1953 large date Lincoln wheat 1 cent with the D mint mark, found in circulated, dirty condition with color dots, has emerged as one of the most sought-after rarities among wheat cent collectors and high-end numismatists. Despite its relatively common date at first glance, this coin's unique combination of design features, low mintage variance, and mint errors have propelled its value into the six-figure realm at auction. To understand why the 1953 D large date penny is so prized, we need to go back to the early 1950s, when the United States Mint was producing these small copper coins en masse to satisfy the post-World War II surge in coin usage. The Lincoln Wheat Cent series, originally introduced in 1909 to commemorate Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday, features one of the most iconic designs in American coinage history, designed by Victor David Brenner. Now, the 1953 coinage year was significant for several reasons. While the overall mintage numbers were not as low as some of the rare earlier wheat cents, certain varieties, especially those struck at the Denver Mint, became scarcer in high-grade conditions, making them more valuable to collectors. The 1953 large date with a D mint mark is distinguished by its larger, more prominent date digits compared to the small date variety minted the same year. What makes the 1953D large date especially valuable today is a combination of rarity in quality, specific mint errors, and the increasing demand for Lincoln wheat cents among collectors who specialize in 20th century issues. The 1953D large date saw a total mintage of approximately 2.3 billion coins, which may seem like a huge number. However, the vast majority was circulated and damaged over the decades, reducing the number of well-preserved specimens drastically. When you factor in certain mint errors that occurred sporadically during the striking process at Denver, these coins stand out as premium collector pieces. One notable mint error associated with the 1953 D large date coin is the presence of color dots or toning spots on the copper surface. This is often due to environmental exposure or mint handling, but in some cases, these color spots occur from striking flaws or die corrosion that create unique surface patterns highly prized by error collectors. The specific dirty condition coins with visible color dots are unusual because despite their circulated nature, they bear unique identifiers that differentiate them from the typical 1953 D cents found in circulation. From a design perspective, the large date variety has noticeably larger and more elongated digits than the small date, especially the 5 and the 3, which are broader and taller. This subtle design difference is important for collectors, since many consider the large date variety scarcer in uncirculated grades. The D mint mark, signifying the Denver Mint, appears below the date on the obverse side, helping collectors identify the origin of the coin. Collectors also look for signs of doubling on this coin, specifically double die errors where the date or mint mark appears doubled due to misalignment during the die creation process. While the 1953 D large date is not famous for extreme double die varieties like earlier cents, slight die doubling or die deterioration has been noted in some high-grade examples, further increasing collector interest and value. Because these coins often appear in circulated and somewhat dirty condition with scratches, patina, and color dots, grading services like PCGS and NGC sometimes assign them grades ranging from very fine to extremely fine. Even in these circulated grades, 1953 D large date wheat cents have crossed the $90,000 0 cents mark in auction sales, especially if the coin shows unusual toning or error characteristics. The dirty color dot condition might sound like a flaw, but to many error coin enthusiasts, it can be a fascinating feature that commands premium pricing. The coin's historical context also adds depth to its value. 1953 was the first full year of production after President Dwight D. Eisenhower took office, a time of economic growth and post-war prosperity in America. Coins from this era evoke a sense of nostalgia and represent a transitional period in American coinage, making them even more collectible. Auction records from recent years show multiple sales of 1953 D large date pennies exceeding $100,000, 0 cents, often accompanied by detailed provenance, certification, and provenance. High-end collectors view these coins as anchor pieces for any advanced wheat cent collection, especially those focusing on mid-20th century issues. To summarize, the 1953 large date Lincoln wheat 1 cent with D-mint mark in circulated dirty color dots condition is a fascinating coin due to its design variety, mint era uniqueness, historical context, and rarity in quality grades. Its huge value in today's auction market, well over $100,000, 0 cents, reflects the combination of these factors, making it one of the premier Lincoln wheat cents sought by serious collectors. Thanks for joining us, happy collecting.